Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this edition of IRENA Insights. My name is Simon Ben-Maraz from the IRENA Innovation and Technology Center. I'm today joined by my teammates, Paola Nardone and Josephine Axelsson. We will start shortly. We will allow a few minutes for participants to join, but thank you again for joining this edition of the 32th IRENA Insights webinar. We will start in 1 or 2 minutes. Thank you very much. For the participant who just joined, I'm going to repeat hi and good afternoon. We will start shortly the webinar, this edition of the IRENA Insights on climate action. We will allow participants to join. It's still early in the schedule. Bear with us. We will start shortly. Thank you very much, and thank you for joining. I think we can start. I see a lot of participants have already joined. So hello everyone, thank you for joining yet another edition of the IRENA Insight webinar. My name is Simon Ben-Maraz. I'm from the IRENA Innovation and Technology Center in Bonn, Germany. This is a short and sharp webinar series of 30 minutes when we deep dive into one of the hot topics of the energy transition. The idea behind this series of webinar is to share with you key insights from IRENA's latest work. In such a short webinar, we cannot cover everything, but we will try to give you enough to decide whether to delve deeper into the topic. And we signpost in our presentation further source and more in-depth information to help you do that. So today, while you still enjoy your coffee, depending on your time zone, tea, bagel, breakfast, or late dinner, in the next 30 minutes or so, you will hear from my team and I about the key insight of our recent work on the support to countries on the enhancement and implementation of NDCs, a key instrument in the Paris Agreement, and we will show example of work with different countries, specifically LDCs, a lot of acronym, low income countries, and SIDS, small island developing states, where we supported the enhancement of their NDCs. But before I hand over the microphone to my colleagues and we start the presentation, just a very briefly usual housekeeping item to cover, which you certainly know from the other online events. First, we are recording this webinar, and the recording and the slide will be on the IRENA event website. Secondly, you are on mute, and if you have any question, please use the question function on the GoToWebinar platform. And don't forget to give us your feedback after the webinar through a very short survey, and it will help us to improve and making sure this series of webinars are relevant for you. Without further ado, let us start. I would like to introduce, and maybe I can give the floor to introduce themselves to my colleagues, Paola Nardone and Josephine. Paola, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi everyone, thank you, Simon. So yeah, my name is Paola Nardone. I'm an associate professional at IRENA Innovation and Technology Center in Bonn, and I am part of the climate action team together with Simon and Josephine. Thank you.
Josephine?
Yes. Hi everyone. My name is Josephine Axelsson. I also work at the IRENA Innovation and Technology Center with climate action support together with Simon and Paola. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Paola and Josephine, for this introduction. Let us start in the topic of today. We wanted to give you a high-level information about why IRENA is supporting this initiative. I will not introduce IRENA. I assume you know the work of IRENA as an intergovernmental organization supporting 162 countries in the energy transition. The webinars of today is focused on LDCs, low-income countries, and SIDS, small island developing states. Through IRENA analysis, we have analyzed that those countries have a tremendous potential for the deployment of renewable energy. However, despite the availability of resources, solar, wind, hydro, and others, they still tend to rely heavily on imported fossil fuel, diesel, and other fuels. Not only are big share of fossil fuel import detrimental to energy security, but also it often leaves countries exposed to the volatility that characterize the oil market. Subsequently, such countries are often exposed to higher energy price, and this is an interesting problem when we're talking about energy access and the increase of renewable energy. This results in energy services that are often difficult to afford for a lot of families, and a lack of competitiveness within productive sectors. So we not only talk about the power system, but also the end-use application for example, the industry, the transport, and the buildings. Given this issue, we felt it's imperative to accelerate the energy transition in LDCs and SIDS, supporting the targets within the Paris Agreement through what is defined as the nationally determined contribution, or NDCs. On the mitigation side, but also more and more on adaptation, renewable energy technologies have the potential to become the backbone of the energy system, and we'll try to show you why. First, important, a lot of countries that are SIDS or LDCs are exposed to devastating impact of climate change. Hurricanes, flood, drought, and other threats have placed exceptional pressure on the economies of such country, resulting in contraction in GDP and increasing level of poverty. As well, due to the supply chain, I would say, of those countries, they often have a high landed cost of technology that can often be 3 times as higher than the developed economies, which is often a barrier to climate technology transfer. Overall, SIDS and LDC demand increasing ambition and a just transition, which should be the 2 sides of the same coin. And they are asking measures to rapidly respond to climate change, which must be equally accounting for the workforce and also the development of new ways to develop the energy systems. Full implementation of such measure will require a holistic and practical action. We will explain you in detail how such measure can help increasing the level of ambition and disease, so countries have access to a more equitable and just transition to a low carbon and climate resilient future. Last year and this year, up to November for the Glasgow Climate Conference, LDCs and SIDS are enhancing all their climate targets, often with plans to commit to net zero emission in order to meet the goal of limiting global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius. I wanted to give you a short overview of a recent major analysis from IRENA, the World Energy Transition Outlook, which is IRENA analysis which plot the way to a steep and continuous downward trajectory toward a 45% decline in carbon dioxide emission by 2030, which is the milestone for the NDCs, and plot a way for net zero emission by 2050. To get there, it is imperative that the land use weighted emission decline and go negative in the year leading up to 2050, so that the overall burden of the remaining carbon budget is at least neutral. For the moment, however, the speed of the energy transition is far from what is needed to stay in line with the Paris Agreement. Policies in current NDCs, as we refer as the planned energy scenario, will merely stabilize global emission with a slight drop toward 2050. Overall, the pace of future projection indicated in the planned energy scenario falls short of what is needed for the 1.5 limit. Therefore, climate action is imperative and important for LDCs and SIDS. The time dimension as well is crucial, and a radical shift is required starting today, based largely on readily available renewable energy technologies that include access to the power system and end-use application. That such technology which should be able to scale up rapidly. IRENA analysis show that over 90% of the solution shaping net zero emission by 2050 involve renewable energy through direct supply, electrification, energy efficiency, green hydrogen, and bioenergy combined with carbon capture and storage. The technological avenue leading to a decarbonized energy system have crystallized, dominated by solutions that can be deployed rapidly and at scale. Technologies, markets, and business models are now evolving, but there is no need to wait for new solutions. Considerable advancement can be achieved with existing solutions. This is the message from the World Energy Transition Outlook. But taking these energy transition technologies requires targeted policy measures accounting for the actual level of maturity of renewable technology today. And this is important because often plans where we analyze the existing climate action plan, we saw that often the cost competitiveness of renewable energy technologies are not at the level of today's. And IRENA is helping to update policymakers, to help policymakers to access to the actual level of maturity of all renewable energy technologies. Here you can see an example of the decrease between 2019 and 2020 of the major renewable energy technology, which includes solar PV, ground-mounted, rooftop and mini-grids, offshore winds, onshore wind, and concentrated solar power, which is a dispatchable renewable energy solution, often important to move to a cleaner energy system. It is clear that from this analysis on the cost competitiveness that renewables will now become the backbone of the energy system and help decarbonize energy generation with costs lower than a business as usual future. I want to give the floor to Josephine to explain us briefly what is the level today of the nationally determined contribution and how they can be used to achieve such ambition to our net zero emission. Josephine, over to you.
Yes, thank you, Simon. So the next slide, please. Yes, I would like to give you a brief introduction to NDCs, the NDC cycle, and the role of renewable energy in NDCs, or national determined contributions. So what are these NDCs? They are climate pledges or climate action plans that each party to the Paris Agreement shall prepare and communicate, and they should include what the country intends to achieve to stay in line with the Paris Agreement and the goal of limiting the Paris Agreement goal of limiting global warming to 1.5 degrees. The Paris Agreement also establishes a ratchet mechanism or an ambition mechanism, which means that countries shall revise and update their NDCs every 5 years. And the guiding principles for these NDC revisions are progression and highest possible ambition. So this means that updated NDCs shall represent progression beyond the current targets and reflect the highest level of ambition. And the first round of submissions were in 2015, and the second round of submissions were planned for 2020. But countries have experienced delays in their preparations of these NDCs due to the COVID pandemic, and countries will now submit their updated or revised NDCs prior to the climate conference, COP26, that was also postponed from last year to later this year in the fall. And as of the first quarter of this year, 75 parties out of 191 have submitted revised NDCs, and they are significantly enhanced. For example, has the number of NDCs that include renewable power generation as a mitigation measure more than doubled. And I will talk a bit more about the role of renewable energy in NDCs in the next slide, please. So renewable energy is, of course, essential to achieve the Paris Agreement goals and to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And this is also reflected in NDCs. 141 parties, or almost 3/4, have set out quantified renewable power targets in their NDCs. And 63 parties, or a third, have set out quantified renewable energy targets for direct heat and/or transport in their NDCs. So this shows how important renewable energy deployment is to achieve the Paris Agreement. But it also shows that countries look beyond the power sector and also realize the vital role of renewable energy to decarbonize end-use sectors. But as Simon mentioned as well, despite these enhancements, NDC still falls short of what is needed to stay in line with the Paris Agreement. The UNFCCC released its synthesis report earlier this year, which assesses the updated NDCs as of the end of last year. And this assessment shows that the new NDCs that represent 30% of global emissions would only decrease emissions by around 3% by 2030 compared to the previous emissions. So more enhanced and ambitious NDCs are still needed. And with that, I would like to hand over to Paula to present to you how our team works to support the enhancement and implementation of climate action plans. Over to you, Paula. Thank you.
Thank you, Josephine. So yeah, in the context of the Paris Agreement and the NDC cycle, as explained by Josephine before, IRENA supports countries providing technical assistance at the country level to support the design, the update, and the implementation of climate action plans. So as part of the IRENA's team, we've been working with countries in a variety of ways over the last couple of years to help them accelerate their transition to renewable energy and build climate resilient energy systems. So, and as part of the IRENA Technology and Innovation Division, we support the enhancement and implementation of national climate plans through innovation and technology activities, which includes a set of support activities, which you can see in this slide. So basically, this is what we do. So what do we do in practical sense? We do sectoral analysis. We provide technical assistance in assessing traditional renewable energy generation, such as solar or utility solar PV or wind, and we analyze the strategies for sector coupling approaches, sector coupling strategies and approaches, such as electric vehicles or electrolysis for hydrogen production. What else do we do? We also support in the design and implementation of mitigation options and adaptation options for climate action plans using, of course, renewable energy technologies. So we support countries identify mitigation options, assess their mitigation potential, so essentially the GHG emission savings potential, the related cost effectiveness of these measures, the assessment of the preliminary cost of the implementation of these measures, and also the potential co-benefits of the potential adaptation co-benefits of a certain mitigation measures. So basically, essentially, these kinds of activities includes developing data sets, tools. It includes a set of national consultation processes and validation technical sessions with key stakeholders, and of course the development of recommendations and insights focused on practical solutions to decarbonize the country's energy systems. What else do we do? Another type of support that goes more into climate action implementation are the technology plans, which are essentially technology-driven innovation plans for the adoption of countries' prioritized technologies that we support the countries in the transition to a greener and zero carbon energy system. So basically, these technology plans can evaluate a concept or a solution or a pilot solution, let's call it, making it a useful tool for both technology validation at the country basis and for the country's long-term planning, energy planning. Of course, these technology plans shall always align with the goals set by countries in their NDCs and their national climate plans. Finally, another type of support that we usually do is we support countries with renewable energy capacity building. And what we do is the rapidly dissemination of up-to-date technical information and know-how on the implementation of renewable energy technologies. For example, some of the topics that could receive support with is, of course, the traditional renewable energy sources, such as the deployment of utility solar PV projects or wind energy. But more and more, we are also focusing on modern renewable energy for end-use sectors. So we aim to expand the ambition beyond the power sector and start focusing on subsectors such as on end-use sectors in the transport sector, industry sector, and others. We also focus on, for example, technologies related to renewable heat, climate resilient systems, focusing on the power system, small-scale renewable energies, and well, other type of specific technology topics in which we have expertise. So, as you can see from the various types of support activities, some of them may focus more on enhancement part, while others may focus more on climate plans implementations. However, each activity is always tailored to the specific national context and the technical needs of the country requesting for support. So essentially, as part of the IRENA team, our strength lies in the strategic understanding of the complexity of the energy transition, of the renewable energy technologies, and of course also from sustainability issues. So our main goal here is, in this context of climate action, is realizing technology development and transfer in countries to improve their resilience to climate change and to reduce, of course, GHG emissions while contributing to a global green energy transition. So we wanted to give you some examples of our support activities, some deep dives on some of these activities. Thank you, Simon. And we would start, as I commented before, for example, with the renewable renewable technology-driven innovation plan. So, as briefly commented before, these are technology plans for the adoption and the spread, let's say, of countries' prioritized technologies for a more sustainable, resilient, and secure energy system. So essentially, this assessment provides information about the potential, the feasibility, and the scale of climate-sound technologies for either adaptation or mitigation purposes. And as unique as innovative climate plans, they can play a unique role in the implementation of the country's climate action plans. So typically, technology plans can serve as pilot plans or pilot solutions, and they can work to decrease, first, the perceived risk around a certain technology, and they can also promote as a consequence, future investment, while encouraging the private sector to invest on these solutions or technology plans, whether in a country or also at the regional scale. So here in the color boxes, you can see some practical case studies of technology plans that were asked by member countries in order to support the development of a specific technology at the national basis. So for example, now we are developing a technology plan for the transport sector decarbonization by means of electromobility in Antigua and Barbuda. Another example is a technology plan that we are developing for El Salvador on the use of renewable heat, so heat from renewable sources for productive agro-industrial applications. In this case, for example, the technical plan focuses on determining the viability, the feasibility of the use of renewable sources for the heat demand of industrial processes from a specific sub-industry industry subsector. In this case, it is the dairy subsector. So for this technology plan, the overall result would be the development of a new concept idea, and it will tell whether the proposed solution, the proposed pilot plan is technically feasible and, very important, worth the investment. So technology plans can also be based on very innovative approaches, and let's call it breakthrough solutions. For example, we are starting a technology infrastructure plan for a hybrid renewable energy solution to be located in a small island development state. And this activity will entail analyzing a green hybrid system that incorporates renewable energy generation with electrolyzers, fuel cells, green hydrogen storage, and batteries. So you can see that depending on the country needs and depending on the technologies prioritized by each country in their climate plan, the technology plans are basically aligned with each country needs. So they are unique. So essentially, all technology plans focuses on providing technology solutions with climate smart and innovative models for displacing fossil fuels and decarbonizing the energy system. So now I'll give the floor back to Josephine, who will explain on some other activities that we support. She will give a deep dive on other activities. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you, Paula. So Paula presented to you the different types of assistance we are offering to support NDC revision processes. And I would like to give you a short example of one of the types of sectoral analysis we conduct. In this case, the cost effectiveness analysis of mitigation options for the power and transport sectors for the Gambia in West Africa and St. Kitts and Nevis, an island nation in the Caribbean. So the aim of these studies was to support the countries in the identification and prioritization of suitable mitigation measures to achieve their national climate goals. And with the information provided from this analysis, support them in their NDC revision process, in the update of their NDC. Next slide, please. So I would like to give you a brief overview here of how we conducted this analysis, or how we conduct this analysis. So first, of course, you have to develop the baseline scenario and assess the greenhouse gas emissions that would result from a business as usual scenario. And the second step is to identify mitigation options that are suitable for these sectors, which we do in collaboration, of course, with the country. By revising their first NDC, but also by identifying and revising other national plans and programs and ongoing projects. And the second or the third step is to assess the greenhouse gas mitigation potential of all these mitigation options to be able to see how much can they contribute to reducing the emissions for the country. And the last part is to analyze the cost effectiveness to see how cost effective are they compared to the business as usual scenario. So what we can do with this analysis in the end is, or our aim is to support climate policy decision making by, on one hand, identifying which mitigation measures offer the highest greenhouse gas reduction potential, but also on the other hand, identifying which mitigation measures are expected to generate the largest cost savings. So which measures should be prioritized and would generate the largest cost savings compared to the business as usual scenario. Next slide, please. So I would like to share with you here some of the key findings and lessons learned from these studies. So first of all, both studies find that there is significant enhancement potential and further greenhouse gas emission reduction potential in the sectors evaluated, both in St. Kitts and Nevis and the Gambia, compared to the first NDC. We also find that all renewable energy mitigation measures evaluated in these two studies would result in cost savings if they are to be implemented, compared to the business as usual scenario and the fossil fuel-based technologies, due to the low cost of renewable energies. We're also experienced that collaboration across sectors and across stakeholders is key for this type of studies in the NDC revision process. It's key because it ensures the alignment between national plans and policies, so they are coherent, coordinated and reflect the same level of ambition. But we also think the collaboration is key to create buy-in, build capacity, and raise awareness at all levels. So include policymakers, experts from ministries, agencies, and other organizations, as well as the private sector and NGOs and civil society, to create buy-in and raise awareness to ensure that these stakeholders that implement the measures are aware of the measures and support the measures and backs the measures when they are to be implemented. And that sums up the key findings and some lessons learned. And now I will hand it over back to you, Simon. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Josephine. I think those are very important case studies. SIDS, small islands with the Caribbean island of St. Kitts and Nevis, where we analyze the integration of high share of renewables in both islands, and the Gambia, which is an interesting case, the smallest country in Africa, where a lot of plans are currently underway to increase the share of renewables and substitute fossil fuel use in both urban and rural areas. And this is very important because, of course, the burden of those fuels are on the economy, and at the end, it will increase energy access and result in large savings for the country. Thank you, Josephine. Thank you, Paula. We have a short time to conclude the presentation. We want also to answer a few questions. I've seen already in the platform, some of you have asked questions or directly write to me. To give you a outlook and way forward in this type of activities within IRENA, the work doesn't stop at the COP26 later this year. My colleagues explained to you that this is a cycle, basically looking at the ratchet mechanism of the Paris agreements and supporting countries to enhancing the target, and also supporting them to give them the mean to implement those measures, and often for LDCs and SINs, meaning access to climate finance. And this, of course, it's heavily linked with one of the major initiatives of IRENA, the Climate Investment Platform. You can find more information on this platform on our website. We are basically a few months before the COP26. We are supporting 10 countries today on enhancement and 13 countries on implementation. looking at implementation plan, costing on implementation options, supporting the formulation of strategies to access climate finance. IRENA teams also support the monitoring and reporting of NDC progress, the so-called MRV framework, and of course, as Paula mentioned, the integral aspect of capacity building and for agencies like IRENA supporting as well those initiatives, including in a South-South mechanism. That's, I would say, our in a nutshell what we wanted to provide you as an information. A lot of our results, I would say, from my team will be available on the IRENA website, but also will be available through the countries NDCs later submitted to the UN climate change body in Bonn, Germany. We have a bit of time for the Q&A session. I would like to ask you to, if you have any question, to write it in the question form, or to send me a direct message so I can formulate the question. I already have one question coming, and this is related to the cost of such technical assistance. In a nutshell, IRENA is an international organization supporting IRENA member countries in the energy transition, and in that respect, the support we provide for the country is provided at no cost. We are interacting, of course, with a lot of international organizations, so we don't work alone in a silo. We interact with the NDC partnership, mainly through the Climate Action Enhancement Package, the CAP program, and of course the partnership plans. The UN Development Program Climate Promise, which is an important initiative to support countries in the enhancement and more implementation of climate action plans. IRENA is a partner of the Climate Promise. And of course, working directly with the UNFCCC organization, and of course on a bilateral mechanism with countries that are IRENA members. Paula, I have a question regarding what you mentioned on the link between the transport and power sector. The question was, do we look at electric vehicles and the aspect of charging those electric vehicles and how they basically connect with the energy grid?
Thank you, Simon. Yes, so the answer is yes. Basically, we start assessing the power sector of the energy system. In case it is there, we start analyzing the possibilities of sector coupling. Basically, we always, essentially, we always make sure that the sector coupling activities are based on a green power mix. This is a key aspect for us. So yeah, basically that's the main aspect of our analysis. I don't know, maybe you want to complement.
No. I mean, you answered it well. I think the more and more the integration of electric vehicles will be an important aspect to look at the demand side of energy systems and how this demand results in the integration of more renewable in the mix. I have another question, perhaps with Josephine. The question was related to what kind of fossil fuel are we looking at when we are looking at the baseline against mitigation scenarios. So maybe you can take the example of Gambia in that perspective.
Yes, of course. Well, so the baseline capacities, or the baseline we compare it to, we of course use the recent, or the most recent power generation portfolio, and then look at the future investment plans, and of course have consultations with the national stakeholders in the Ministry of Energy and other organizations, to project what does the future supply look like, which technologies are expected or planned to be implemented. So it depends on the country context and their investment plans and their resources. But in the case of Gambia, for example, it is today almost 100% based on HFO, so heavy fuel oil. But they also have a lot of grid expansion or interconnection projects with other countries. So they were also took into account the potential import capacities in the future. So to sum it up, I would say it depends on the country and their future investment plans.
Thank you, Josephine. I mean, very useful. And yes, HFO is a usual suspect when we look at baseline scenario, but also in other countries, we're looking at diesels, for example, in the example of islands. So it's very specific to the country, and we take a lot of time analyzing the existing, I would say, energy mix and interacting with national stakeholders to make sure our analysis is relevant for the enhancement of their climate action plans. Unfortunately, our webinar is coming shortly to a close. That's all the time we have for today. I will recommend you to, if you have any other question, to contact us through our email and the IRENA website. We will share, of course, the presentation and the recording soon on our website, irena.org. I would like to give a special thanks to Paula and Josephine for their time and contribution to this important process of looking at climate action plan enhancement and implementation, and also for sharing with us key takeaways from their work. And of course, thank you all for joining us today, listening, and also for your question. We hope you learned something new. We'll be taking now a summer break for the IRENA Insight, and we hope to see you in the fall for our next webinar. So that's all for today, and goodbye and see you soon. Bye-bye.